prior to that grand slam, there was a major decision made by the Yankees. Not Nestor Cortes coming in to pitch against Ohtani and Freeman. That decision was made well before the game on Monday. We told you last week that in between the championship series and the World Series, you set your roster. There are players who are put on the roster, players taken off the roster. Evan Phillips with the Dodgers. You get a little injury, you're off the roster. Rojas feeling better, back on the roster. Started at shortstop game 2. Vezia, Gratterall, 2 pitchers who couldn't pitch in the National League Championship Series. They were ready to go. They were put on the roster. Nestor Cortes, not ready to go in the division series, not ready to go since mid-September when he was supposed to be out for the season. Wait to see, I got it wrong. Flexor strain, which is the precursor to Tommy John more often than it's not. Nestor gets the PRP, he calms his arm down, he builds up to 60, 90, 120 feet, gets back on the bump, pitches some simulated games, faces some real live batters, and the Yankees decide before game 1 that Nestor Cortes is ready. Then he appears on the front and back page of the newspapers in New York. Go back to our show last week and hear us tell you about Nestor saying, if I have a chance for a ring, I've weighed the consequences. I'm willing to give up a year of baseball if my arm falls off and my ligament goes and he's got to get reconstructive surgery. So when you are having a meeting, which has the president of baseball operations, Brian Cashman, you've got your assistant GMs, you've got your head of scouting, development, your manager, and your pitching coach. That's a meeting. Then your hitting coach comes in. That's a meeting. Then they go out. The manager stays in, and you go through the roster. Not only do you make a decision of who's going to be on the roster, you make a decision of how the players are going to be used on the roster. The Yankees made the decision prior to game 1 that Nestor Cortes was going to not be a starter. Nestor Cortes, they were going to have in the bullpen because they were going to go with Cole, Rodon, Schmidt, and they weren't going Cole 1, 4, and 7. They're going to go heel in game 4, even if they're down 3-0, even if they're down. If it's tied, I guess it can only be 3-0 or 2-1 at this point. But tomorrow's game, I don't know if they've announced it, but I promise you it's going to be heel and not Cole. Decision's done. Then you go through your bullpen. What order are we using the players? The pitchers. Who do we want these pitchers facing in the opposing team's lineup? Then we go through a simulation. Well, the Dodgers generally employ the following pinch hitters late innings toward the bottom of the lineup. Then at the top of the lineup, we always have to separate Ohtani, and then it comes Betts and Freeman if it's a righty starting the game, or it's Ohtani, Betts, Teoscar, Freeman if it's a lefty starting the game. They know this. They're not waiting for the lineup to be released by the other team to say, oh my God, I had no idea that Freeman would be hitting 3rd or 4th. So then you go through each pitcher and you say, all right, we want Cortez in the late innings facing Ohtani and facing Freeman. I think it is an absolutely asinine decision to have made, not because he gave up the home run to Freeman. Was it a brilliant decision when Ohtani popped out? Mookie, remember, you don't have to throw 4 pitches in baseball anymore. The intentional walk means you put 4 fingers up. Boom, the player goes to first base without throwing a pitch. However, it does count as a batter faced for a reliever, might I add. In any case, now Freeman comes up, first pitch from Cortez, and it was memorable in that it's never happened before. There's never been a walk-off grand slam in World Series history, and this is the 120th World Series. So Freeman hits a home run, and all of a sudden, people have lost their minds, including me. Except I lost my mind about Cortez when he was added to the roster. I figured if they're going to add him to the roster, he's there as a long guy, at best in a blowout, but there's no way they're giving him the leverage at bats. It just doesn't make sense. He hadn't pitched since September 18th. I don't care how well you perform in sim games. I don't care how good you look in bullpens. I don't care what you tell me. My arm feels amazing. I don't care that you've been around the longest and you are a man's man, a player's player. It is totally unrealistic to think. Now, Vezina and Gratterall have performed for the Dodgers, but they hadn't missed a month. It's incredibly difficult for you to believe, or for me to believe, that Nestor would be able to be that sharp immediately. It sounds like we're playing the result because of what he gave up, but we're not. What we're saying is when you put him on the roster and you gave him that assignment, and this isn't like a secret. So the way it works is when players are on the roster, they know their roles, because they're getting ready for those specific roles. So if you know that you're, for example, on the team, and that if the starter has trouble in the first or second inning, your role is to come in the early innings to clean up, and you know you're going to come in a deficit situation. You mentally prepare for that. If you know that your role is going to be in the ninth inning as a closer, you prepare for that. And it completely changes what you're doing both pregame and during the game in terms of the routine that each pitcher has that they go through prior to getting in the game. So if Cortez is ready for late inning Ohtani Freeman, they would not have gone to Cortez if out of nowhere Cole or in game 2 Rodon gave up 7 runs in the first 2 innings and they needed a long guy. They just wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have been ready.